Stress relief. So you've had a really long day. Your boss was breathing down your neck, your inbox is overflowing, and you just got stuck in traffic behind a driver who apparently mistook the gas pedal for a suggestion. Your stress levels are through the roof and you need relief fast. Now, you could meditate, but that requires patience. You could go for a run, but that requires effort. Or you could go with an option that's free, accessible, and scientifically proven to work. Yup, masturbation. It is basically like nature's built-in stress relief system. When you masturbate, your brain releases a cocktail of feel-good chemicals, dopamine, endorphins, and oxytocin, and these guys are the A-team of relaxation that fight off stress like superheroes. Dopamine is the reward chemical. It makes you feel good when you do something enjoyable. Endorphins are your natural painkillers that make you all warm and fuzzy, while oxytocin is the love hormone. It's the same one released during cuddling or bonding moments, making you feel all cozy and emotionally stable. In other words, a quick solo session is like giving your brain a relaxing spa day.
Nope.
No appointment needed. Helps with menstrual cramps. Menstrual cramps happen because your uterus is contracting to shed its lining, and so releases a chemical called prostaglandins, which trigger muscle cramps and pain. Basically, your uterus is treating your insides like a stress ball, squeezing way too aggressively. Now, most people in these situations would pop painkillers, curl up with a heating pad, and contemplate whether they owe their uterus an apology for existing. But what if I told you there's a built-in, all-natural pain relief system that's free, fun, and requires 0 pharmacy visits? That's right! Turns out your body actually has a self-destruct button for cramps, and it's called masturbation. Basically, orgasms release endorphins, which are basically your brain's way of giving your uterus some natural morphine to chill out. These block pain receptors, making cramps less noticeable. So even though your uterus is screaming, your brain simply can't process the pain. The best part about it is that when you have an orgasm, your body goes through a series of rhythmic muscle contractions, including your uterus. So once the big finale is over, everything relaxes. That post-orgasmic relief effect can significantly reduce period cramps, making you feel like you just negotiated a peace treaty with your uterus. And for the icing on top, orgasms increase blood circulation, which helps flush out those pesky prostaglandins faster. More blood flow also means your uterus gets more oxygen, reducing cramps intensity. Sleep disruptions. On one hand, masturbation can help you sleep because when you orgasm, your brain releases prolactin, oxytocin, and endorphins, a trio of chemicals that basically tell your body to relax after having fun. This is why some people pass out faster than a phone with a 1% battery after they finish. But for others, it has the opposite effect. Instead of sleepiness, they get a racing mind full of random thoughts, restlessness, tossing and turning like a confused burrito, and even an energy boost like they just drank a shot of espresso. If you are wondering why this happens, well, you have the one and only dopamine chemical to blame. Sometimes when your brain gets too much of this chemical, instead of letting you relax and wind down, it'll keep you alert and send your mind into overdrive instead. Plus, masturbation isn't just mental, it's physical too, so during the act, your heart rate goes up, your breathing gets faster, and your body basically thinks it's doing light cardio. So your nervous system basically gets confused, and instead of feeling relaxed, you might have lingering energy, making sleep harder to come by. Then there's the fact that electronic screens emit blue light, which suppresses melatonin, the hormone that makes you sleepy. So if your bedtime routine involves both watching and touching, you might be setting yourself up for a long, restless night. Boosts immune system. First thing first, we've already established that masturbation reduces stress, and stress is like an evil villain that weakens your immune system faster than a bad sequel ruins a movie franchise. You see, when you're stressed, your body releases cortisol, which in small amounts is fine. But too much and it'll be like setting your immune system on fire and then complaining about the smoke. However, orgasms release endorphins, your brain's natural feel-good chemicals, and these guys lower stress levels, reducing excess cortisol and keeping your immune cells strong and ready to fight. Studies have even found that after orgasm, the body experiences a temporary boost in white blood cell production, which is your body's army of disease-fighting ninjas. Now, these cells are responsible for finding and destroying viruses, bacteria, and other nasty invaders trying to mess with your health. So basically, every time you engage in a little self-maintenance, you're essentially building reinforcements throughout your body. Masturbation might even help fight colds and flu by temporarily increasing your IgA levels, which is an antibody that acts as your first line of defense against viruses, including colds and flu. This means your body would be better equipped to block incoming invaders. Guilt or shame? For centuries, people have been obsessed with making others feel bad about things that are totally natural. Whether it's old religious teachings, outdated cultural norms, or that one strict teacher who said God is watching, a lot of people grow up thinking that pleasure is shameful. It doesn't help that certain movies and books act like masturbation is something only weirdos do. Meanwhile, medical studies and every species in the animal kingdom would like to politely disagree. Yes, even dolphins do it, and they seem to be having a great time. Now, the human brain loves to categorize things into right and wrong, so when you've been taught that masturbation is bad, your mind goes into courtroom mode with logic telling you that masturbation is natural and healthy, but guilt argues that it's a terrible sin and you're a disgrace. The point is, you'll be stuck in an overthinking loop for possibly the next 3 hours, drowning in shame. However, despite all of these, you should still understand that masturbation is normal, because it is! Well, unless you're out here doing it in the middle of a work meeting. That's like sneezing. Your body does it, everyone experiences it, and the only weird thing is if someone makes a big deal out of it. Death grip. So, death grip syndrome, DGS, is a condition where excessive, overly aggressive masturbation desensitizes your penis, making it harder, or rather, less hard, for you to feel pleasure from normal sexual activity. Think of it like a video game when you've been playing on insane difficulty for so long that when you switch to easy mode, your brain doesn't even register the challenge anymore. Essentially, your penis gets used to a firm, fast, high-friction grip that regular sex, or even softer masturbation, doesn't feel stimulating enough. This happens because your nervous system is adaptable. It learns patterns. So if your daily routine involves an intense vice-like grip, your brain registers that as normal stimulation. Over time, your nerve endings adjust to that high intensity, making everything less than your usual grip feel like a weak handshake from an underwhelming acquaintance. And the worst part is that your brain would also link arousal to that specific pressure and rhythm. Therefore, when you try to enjoy a slower, more natural experience, like actual sex, it feels off. People who experience this would believe that their hand is doing a better job than a partner ever could. They would also experience a delayed or reduced sensitivity down there, which would make it harder to keep it up. Erectile dysfunction. So imagine you're finally in bed with someone and the moment is just right. But when it's time for action, your soldier refuses to even stand. You try everything, even a pep talk, but nothing. Sadly, this is what porn-induced erectile dysfunction, PIED, is. A condition where your brain has been so spoiled by digital fireworks that real-life intimacy just feels like a dollar store glow stick in comparison. Now, masturbation by itself isn't the problem. It's the VIP all-access pass to the theme park of hardcore pornography that rewires the brain like a shady electrician. See, every time you watch porn and finish the deed, your brain gets a fat dose of dopamine, the feel-good chemical. This is the same chemical that makes chocolate taste amazing, social media feel addicting, and winning the lottery seems life-changing. It's your brain's way of saying, hey, that was great, do it again. But here's the catch. The brain loves novelty. Every time you scroll through a new video, switching categories, and find an even wilder scene than the last time, your brain releases even more dopamine. And just like that, your regular stimulation won't be enough anymore. At the end of the day, what you are just doing is training your brain to crave increasingly extreme, unrealistic scenarios just to feel the same rush. So after a while, watching pixels on a screen becomes way more exciting than real-life intimacy, because in real life, there's no perfect lighting or background music to set the mood. Your partner doesn't have 4K resolution or a skip intro button, and you can't just scroll to the next scene if things slow down. This time, there's the effort, emotions, communication, and foreplay. Pelvic floor dysfunction and weakening for both men and women. So think of your pelvic floor muscles like the Wi-Fi in your house. They're strong, stable, and keep everything connected. But the moment you start overloading the system, it'll start to lag and malfunction. Now you'll need to buffer it for things to work smoothly occasionally. The occasional buffering and lagging when you overload your Wi-Fi is exactly what happens downstairs when you overdo it in the self-love department. This is called pelvic floor dysfunction, PFD. And yes, the name is as scary as it sounds. Basically, your pelvic floor is a group of muscles at the bottom of your pelvis holding up your bladder, your intestines, and your reproductive organs. Think of it as a hammock for your lower body business. So when it's strong and flexible, everything functions smoothly. But when it's overworked, too tense, or too weak, you might start to leak pee when you sneeze, laugh, or jump. There'd also be pelvic pain and even erectile or orgasmic issues. Basically, it's like having a personal assistant that suddenly goes on strike. Porn-induced brain changes. Your brain is like a fresh, brand new smartphone that's fast, responsive, and eager to explore. But then you discover an app called Unlimited Free Adult Content, and suddenly that's the only app you ever use. Your once powerful device will start to lag, and before you know it, your hardware will stop performing like it used to. This is basically what happens in the world of porn-induced brain changes. It's a condition where your brain gets hacked by dopamine to the point where real-life experiences feel like a buffering video at 144p. The thing is, dopamine is great because it gives our brain rewards when we do something rewarding or fun, like hugging your grandma or licking ice cream. However, when you do the action over and over again, the brain is flooded with a tsunami of dopamine and it feels like you're giving your brain a non-stop birthday party. This would totally mess up your wiring because your brain wasn't designed for this level of stimulation. The more you watch, the more your brain adapts to these high doses, and eventually, your dopamine receptors burn out like an overcooked steak. But the good news is that this isn't permanent. Your brain is a super adaptable muscle, and just like you can rewire it to crave extreme digital stimulation, you can rewire it back to normal. Death by orgasm. Have you ever heard the phrase, go out with a bang? Well, for some unlucky souls, that bang wasn't just metaphorical, it was their final fireworks show. Yep, we're talking about death by orgasm. The rare but real phenomenon where climaxing too hard, too often, or under the wrong conditions can quite literally be the end of the road. First, let's talk about the wild ride your body goes on during orgasm. You see, when you climax, your heart rate spikes, your blood pressure skyrockets, and your entire nervous system gets lit up like a Christmas tree on steroids. Normally, this is no big deal. Your body just rides the wave and comes back down. But if you've got underlying heart conditions, high blood pressure, or a weak ticker, that intense moment of pleasure can turn into a cardiac catastrophe. In some cases, the rush of chemicals like dopamine, norepinephrine, and adrenaline overloads the heart, leading to a heart attack or cardiac arrest. Essentially, your body is trying to celebrate too hard, and your heart is like, bro, I can't keep up with this energy. And boom, just like that, game over. Your obituary might even now include the phrase, went out doing what they loved. In fact, there is actually a life experience of a man in Nigeria who reportedly died after masturbating 62 times in a row in 2013. His heart just couldn't handle the marathon. 62 times? At that point, you're not even watching porn anymore, you're just speed running life. Basically, your brain, much like an old laptop, can overheat and crash if it's forced to process too much stimulation at once. And let's be honest, watching that one forbidden category on the internet while going at it full force is way more than your brain was designed to handle. Prostate health. So, the prostate is this little walnut-sized MVP that sits just below the bladder and is responsible for making prostate fluid, a key ingredient in your baby batter. Think of it like the secret sauce in the reproductive recipe. Without it, sperm would be taking a very dry and uncomfortable road trip. You see, your prostate is constantly producing fluid, and if it just sits there, things can get a little, backed up. Imagine a kitchen sink that never once gets used. Eventually, stuff builds up, bacteria can settle in, and suddenly your once functional faucet is a breeding ground for trouble. This same logic applies to your prostate. Basically, what this means is that when you regularly flush out the system, aka ejaculate, you're essentially doing preventative maintenance that'll clear out toxins and old cells that might otherwise build up in the gland. You're also reducing any inflammation and lowering the risk of clogged ducts, because nobody wants a traffic jam in their baby-making machinery. In other words, giving yourself a hand might just keep the engine running smoothly. This is equally backed up by real scientific evidence, as a 2016 study from Harvard University found that men who ejaculated 21 times or more per month had a 33% lower risk of developing prostate cancer compared to those who only did it 4 to 7 times per month. Yes, you heard that right. Science is literally telling you that handling business is good for your health. Chronic fatigue. Masturbation might seem like a harmless solo activity, but behind the scenes, your body is spending serious resources every time you do the deed. Think of it as your body's biological economy. You can't keep making withdrawals without consequences. Basically, every time you masturbate, your brain floods with dopamine, but once you're done, it crashes harder than a teenager after pulling an all-nighter. Your nervous system shifts from excitement mode to post-nut shutdown mode, which means less energy, lower motivation, and the sudden desire to become one with your couch. Plus, your adrenal glands, which are like your body's energy generators, have to keep producing cortisol and adrenaline to keep you alert and ready for action. But when you masturbate too often, your adrenals work overtime, constantly flipping between arousal and recovery mode. The poor guys are literally going to be running on just fumes. I mean, believe it or not, semen isn't just magical fun juice. It's actually packed with nutrients, including zinc, magnesium, and proteins. So when you release the Kraken too often, your body has to work extra hard to replenish those lost nutrients. Hormonal imbalance. Think of your body as a beautiful orchestra where hormones are the instruments. When everything is balanced, it's like listening to a masterpiece by Mozart that's calm, smooth, and in harmony. But when you go a little overboard with self-love, suddenly your violinist, which in this case is the testosterone, would be going rogue. The drummer, aka dopamine, is playing a triple speed, and the flute player, which is the prolactin, has decided to quit mid-performance. In short, things get messy. This is because these three chemicals are responsible for giving you pleasure and satisfaction. However, too much of anything is bad. When there's too much dopamine, your brain wouldn't be able to handle all the rush. Too much prolactin would lead to constant fatigue, low libido, and lower testosterone for men. Because the more prolactin in your system, the less testosterone you have, making you tired, unmotivated, and possibly less manly than you'd like. Anxiety and social withdrawal. Let's imagine you're alone in your room, lights dimmed, phone in hand, about to take a one-way trip to Pleasure Town. And it's supposed to be a quick pit stop, but somehow you lose track of time. Before you know it, it's been hours, and your body is drained, your brain is foggy, and your soul is questioning its life choices. But then you're so tired to even do anything, and very comfortable in your little dopamine dungeon. So you ghost and ignore everything else because real-world interactions suddenly feel overwhelming, unnecessary, or exhausting. Now you're avoiding people, skipping plans, and replacing real connection with, well, hand-to-hand combat. This is basically what the anxiety, masturbation, social withdrawal cycle is, and it starts when a little bit of fun turns into a full-blown self-imposed exile. Now, this dangerous cycle majorly starts when you touch yourself all the time. Your body rewards you for doing absolutely nothing, so why go outside and risk social awkwardness when you can get instant gratification from your own two hands? And over time, anxiety starts to creep in because you know you should be socializing, but you spent so much time in isolation that going out feels like a mission to Mars. Then finally, the social withdrawal and low self-esteem creeps in because you'll soon start comparing yourself with others. You see your friends going out, dating, having fun. Meanwhile, you're alone in your room with nothing but your hand and an internet history that would make a priest faint.